Hi, and welcome to another episode of Wide Net of Esoterica. I'm your host, Ian Stewart. I apologize for the road noise, but today's an outdoor episode, so we're going to have to deal with it. Today's episode is going to be a change from what we've been doing in the past. Today we're going to talk about something that may or may not be relevant to you in this current self-isolation period. Today we're going to talk about garden beds. Now, a friend of mine who follows my Instagram account had seen that I'd posted some raised garden beds the other day and was wondering how to build them. So that's what we'll do today. We'll build a garden bed, and I will give you all the pieces and parts you need to build one of these raised garden beds. One I'm sitting on right now is 2 foot by 7 foot. I tend to use a system that's called square foot gardening. It's based off a book by Mel Bartholomew. I suggest you check it out. It's really good, intense, small-scale gardening. I've been a small-scale gardener, a square foot gardener all my life. I find it to be a very successful system, and these raised beds will allow you to both move your gardens around to get better sunlight, and also, because you make your own soil to put in these, you don't deal with weeds, keeps it out of the critters. So really, as you see here, I've got a 2 foot by 7 foot one, there's a 4 foot by 4 foot one, and then over here I've got a 2 foot by 4 foot that's made out of 2 by 12, and I can grow carrots and potatoes and parsnips in that. So that's my deep crop one. The rest of them, all 2 by 6s. So, alright, let's get together our cut list. So let's talk tools and materials. First off, tools. The trusty tape measure, a speed square, or a framing square. But for jobs like this, I like the speed square. You're going to need a saw. I'm using my circular saw here. If you don't have a circular saw, you can use a hand saw. Circular saw is going to make it fast and clean. I tend to keep a couple clamps around. 12-inch clamps, 24-inch clamps. You're going to find those very handy. If you don't have them, you don't need them. They're nice to have, don't need to have. Really, need to have is a saw, tape measure, some kind of square, your trusty pencil, and a screw gun, with a 1/4-inch screw bit, and a screw for driving your screws. Now, you can put these together with nails. I like screws, they just hold a little better. And for this, I generally use a 3 1/8-inch screw for the corner joins and the legs, and a 2-inch screw for attaching the bottom piece to the side pieces. Now, what wood are you going to need? So, I am making a 2 foot by 6 foot box. So, I went this morning and bought myself a sheet, a 4 by 8 sheet of the thickest plywood I could get at my local home improvement store. This is 23/32. It's the closest you can get to 3/4. Now, I tend to do these in ratios of either 4 or 2, because if it's a 4 foot box, you just, 4 foot by 4 foot, you cut your sheet of plywood in half. If it's 2 foot, cut it down the middle. And the people at your home improvement store will do it for you. So out of a 4 foot by 8 foot sheet of plywood, you could get 2 2 foot by 8 foot beds. You could get 4 2 foot by 4 foot beds, 2 4 foot by 4 foot beds. So you see how this all works out? Now our lumber, so that's our plywood, our lumber is 2 by 6. Now you can get 2 by 6 by 8. So if I've got a 2 by 6 by 8, and I'm doing a 6 foot box, 2 2 by 6 by 8s gets me all my sides. And the legs, my legs are 24 inches tall. And I tend to use 8 legs per box. You'll see how and why in a minute. So I need 2 more 2 by 6 by 8s to make one box. So for a box 2 by 6 2 foot by 6 foot, I need two 2 by 6 by 8s and another 2 for the legs. So I need a total of 4 2 by 6 by 8s and 1 sheet of plywood, and you're done. Multiply out that way. So, you know, but if you keep on increments of 2 foot or 1 foot, it's the thing about square foot gardening, it's all based on square feet. So that's going to get you the optimal lumber usage with the least amount of scrap. So now that we've talked about tools and materials, let's get into hearing protection. You're going to need something for your ears. Your glasses, safety glasses, good for doing your cuts. All right, now that we've laid this all out, let's get to cutting. Okay, so now it's time to cut. So for this, we're going to need 2 pieces, 6 feet long. You can use your tape measure, or you can cheat and do what I like to call scribing. So you take your 2 by 6 and you put it up on its side. Line it up to the end. Make sure it's sort of sitting right where you want it. Take your pencil, mark the underside right at that joint. Turn it up. There's your line. Continue your line around. Now there's your cut line. Now, fun trick. Make sure your hearing protection's on. Take your speed square, you line it up right here. Make sure that this piece is down here, otherwise the body of your saw will ride against it. And then you just line up your blade. Cut. Nice and square, straight. Done. So that's one piece down. Now, we know that one's going to be there, so we'll line this one up on this end just in case there's an irregularity in your cut. You know, make sure you're making every piece specifically where it needs to live. And then you find your pencil, which in this case is on the ground. Apparently missed my pocket. Make that mark. Bring this over. There's your mark. Line it up here. Transfer over. Flip that for the cut. Now we've got our 2 long sides. Now the plywood I'm using is a BC plywood, which means the 2 different sides are different quality grade. I tend to put the C side up, mostly because the B side is smoother, and if you're going to be moving these around, you want to have the smooth side of the plywood on your hands. Bottom side doesn't matter, the plants don't care. So then you take your tape measure, and you pull this measure here, making sure that you're lined up at the edges. It's 20 3/4 on this one. 20 3/4. So we know that our pieces here are 20 3/4. I have some cutoffs from some other beds that I made that I can turn these into. Now if you've got an 8-footer and you're making a 2 by 6, you'll have roughly a 2-foot cutoff. That'll be the piece you need. This is our cut line. 3/4. And like that, you've got all 4 sides of your box. So, moving everything back. Line everything up on its corners. Now let me move the camera out here so you can see. There. So you see here I've got all 4 sides laid out. Pretty easy. It's exactly 4 cuts. You know, cut the length, cut the sides to length, you're done. I tend to run it long sides, short side filling. If you want to run it the other way, so the 2-footers are full length and these are short, it's, you know, that's up to you. I like to do it this way because it's just easier math for me. So, alright, now, next step, assembly. Using your long screws. This is also where if you have a clamp, it can come in handy. I tend to clamp these down. I tend to just use 2 screws here. Or, you know, you throw the screws on the ground, that's always fun. Now, it's one of those things, you gotta be careful when you're screwing, because sometimes your wood gets out of plane. So you want to make sure all your edges are flush. Otherwise your box gets out of square and it gets kind of hanky. So, if it gets out of square, you know, if you've screwed and it's sort of, you don't like the way it is, unscrew, make the adjustment, pick a different hole. You know, these are garden beds. It's not cabinetry. You will discover that plywood is slippery, so these are going to want to slide around on you, on the plywood. So I tend to just keep a hand on it. I also use these GRK screws. I tend to, they both they tend to pull a joint in better than normal screws. But use whatever you have sitting around. You know, use whatever you have that you're comfortable using. Like I said, I use these GRK screws because that's what I prefer. But you know, it's your garden box. Whatever makes you happy. So, you you know, then line this up, you know, and it's commercial lumber, so it might have some twists in it. But a good clamp can get rid of that. Or a friendly assistant. You don't have a clamp, but you've got a friend who can help. Somebody else who's there at the house who can hold things while you're assembling. I also like using the plywood because it works as a work surface. As I slide around a little bit, get in there. There it is. 8 screws on your 4 corners, and your sides are done. So at this point, what we're going to do, we're going to take our box and we're going to turn it upside down. Right? So you see, this is you see here, this is the B side. That's the C side. It's got more knots. I tend to go with the what they call sanded plywood. Again, it's just nice to run your hands. And get it as square as you can manage. And there it is. Now for attaching the bottom, again, GRKs, but like I said, any screw will do. Coarse thread, drywall screw, anything like that. Typically, I start by tagging the corners. Once the corners are set, the whole thing is sort of locked. No, it's not sort of locked, it is locked. Another nice thing with the GRK is you don't have to pre-drill your holes, which is always a bonus. Cuts down a step if you've got wood that splinters really easily, or checks or breaks. Now, 4 corners are done. At this point, what I'm going to do, put my tape out here. 6-foot box. So I know I want to put one at 3, one at 2, one at 1, 4, and 5. So basically every foot. Come over here and do the same thing. And you can do it by eye. Do it by feel, but I like to lay it out, do it this way. I don't know, feels right to me. Might be my OCD showing. So, you've got all your screws laid out. I generally start the middle. And you might notice that there's a, you know, maybe the edges aren't completely playing right. Maybe there's a bit of warp in your 2x stock. Well, you can compensate for that by pulling against it. yourself flush. So now we've got our centers screwed. Just go through and screw the rest down. And just remember, it's 2x stock, so you've got 1.5 inches to screw into. Generally, you want to put your screw about 3/4 of an inch in. Just so you get good bite. Again, remember, for this garden box, we just need 4 pieces of wood, 4 2x6x8s. And 1 sheet of plywood. Something to measure with, a pencil, a square, and a screw gun, some screws. Trying to make this as simple as possible. And pretty much as cheap as possible. And there it is. At this point, this garden bed is done, more or less. So you've got garden bed, there it is. Now there's one more step because this is a raised bed. Drainage. So, turn it back over. If you want to be really thorough, now that we've got every foot marked out, you can go through and mark each square on the bottom. I don't find that necessary, but you can if you want. There's no right or wrong way of doing this, but you want to, at each corner, with a 1/4 inch drill bit, so you drill a drainage hole in each corner. Now, you've got your 4 drainage holes. Every square foot gets another drainage hole. Well, luckily we know where the square feet are. So in the middle of each square foot, more or less, drill a drainage hole. Now, yes, drilling this way, you're going to have potentially some blowout on the underside. But that's going to be the side that's against the dirt. Doesn't really matter. So, it's 2 foot by 6 foot, which gives us 12 square feet. We have 12 drainage holes drilled in here, plus another 4 at the corner, for a total of 16 drainage holes. If you want to just put this up on cinder blocks, This bed is now done, ready for soil. But I tend to put them up on legs, just keeps them out of the critter ways. But if you don't want to go take that step, you make your soil, you put your dirt in here. The system I use, you make your own soil. So, but next we'll do the legs. All right, so at this point, we have our bed made, besides for legs. So here I've got a pile of 2x6s. These are made out of hemlock. It's rough cut hemlock I had lying around. You can use what you get at the home improvement store. It really doesn't matter. 2x6s are what you want. So it's time to attach the legs. This is where a clamp's going to come in handy. So you want to just kind of line up your leg so that it's flush with the top of the box and flush with this edge, and then using your longer screws, your 3-inch screws, screw it in. That's that. Then I take this one and put it flush to this face. Again, making sure that we're nice and flush here. And here. And for this side, I'm going to need 3 screws. Now I tend to screw on a diagonal. I just feel it gets a better. It's not. You know, think about your wood as sort of an in plane, and if you've got all your screws up here, it's a hinge point. But if you put them here and here, it gives you much better holding power with only using 2 screws. And then I throw in a screw here, which tightens these 2 up. Boom, I've got a corner. So we're going to do that 3 more times. This is where clamps are handy, but if you don't have clamps, but you do have a friend nearby, maybe a family member or partner, you know, somebody who you don't need to social distance with, they can be super handy at this point. Again, making sure that everything's nice and lined up. Now again, I'm running these to the edge here, longwise. This is the long face of the 2x6 below, but it's all personal preference. Yeah, however you want to make your box work for you, it's fine, as long as it's, you know, made out of solid wood. And it's got drainage holes. The way in which you screw it together, it doesn't really affect the end product. But whatever you do, just be consistent. corners. As you can see, I'm just using one clamp to secure these while I screw them. You know, again, trying to keep your overhead minimal here. Now people will ask, you know, can I make this out of scrap? You can, as long as it's not scrap that's been used for something else that may have paint on it, or pressure treat. You know, you don't want to use treated lumber for this, because you know you're growing food in this, and you don't want chemicals getting in your plants. Pretty straightforward. So you can paint these. Just make sure if you're going to paint, you only paint the outside on the bottom, you know, this bottom. Don't paint any surface that's going to be in contact with your plants. Again, 2 screws on a diagonal and then a 3rd screw up here. Hold the leg together. Now we're down to one last corner. And then this will be done. And hopefully this is all pretty straightforward. I hope that I've been making it seem straightforward. Again, lining up our edges so that everything's nice and flush. One last piece. So again, a screw gun, some 2x6s, a piece of plywood, a saw, and you can have yourself a pretty nice little garden bed. And there it is. 4 legs. Besides for dirt, your garden bed is done. So in the system of gardening I use, the square foot gardening system I've talked about, you make your own soil. So you don't have to worry about weeds, other things coming in with your soil. Now, best way to calculate how much your dirt you're going to need is figure out how many cubic feet your box is. So, This is 6 inches deep, give or take. It's really 5.5, but we'll call it 6 inches deep for ease of math. So cubic foot is 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot. We've laid it out square foot wise, so it's 2 feet wide, 6 feet long. So 2 feet wide and 6 inches deep. So one of these strips is 1 cubic foot. So we know this is 6 feet long. It's going to take 6 cubic feet of dirt to fill this box. So the ratio I use, the ratio I've been taught to use, is 1/3 peat moss, 1/3 vermiculite, and 1/3 compost. And the more variety you can get in the compost, the better. Most compost is sold in 1 cubic foot bags, more or less. So that's easy, you know. Get 2 different bags of compost, vermiculite, vermiculate's typically sold in 4 cubic foot bundles, and peat moss is also sold in 4 cubic foot bundles. So, you know, if you're making 2 of these, that gives you 12 cubic feet. So you're going to need 4 cubic feet of each ingredient. It's pretty easy. 4 bags of compost, 1 thing of peat moss, 1 thing of vermiculite, and you mix it up on a tarp, and then fill your box. The original author suggests that you take strips of lath and put them every foot with a piece across. That way you give yourself a grid. If you want to do that, you can. Kind of gives it a nice look. Like I said, you can paint it, but only paint the outsides. Don't paint where the plants are going to be. So that's it. You make your soil, you fill it up, you plant, you're good to go. These are light enough that you can move them around. 2 people can move them around a yard, so you can get better sunlight. So there it is, a 2 foot by 6 foot garden bed. What do you need? You need 4 2 by 6 by 8s and a sheet of plywood that's been cut down so that it's 2 feet wide. In this case, 6 feet long. So you need a piece of 3/4, 22 by 22 32 plywood, 2 foot by 6 foot, 4 2 by 6 by 8s. 2 of them are for your sides, and 2 of them make your 24-inch legs. There it is, garden box. Thanks for watching, and until next time, this is Wide Net of Esoterica. I'm Ian Stewart. Remember, if you got any questions, down below in the YouTube description is a link to a forum where you can submit your questions. So, thanks for tuning in. See you next time.